We're listening to Pondering Pennies with Dempsy and Rae.
How's it going, Ray? How was your last 2 weeks?
My last 2 weeks were good. I feel like they flew by, man. I feel like every day just goes by so quickly. I don't know. How was your last 2 weeks?
Long, a lot of hours at work. But you know what? Got what done with this current working detail in August. So about 7 months left before I move on to the next thing.
That's exciting. That's really exciting, actually. Going on to a new job, get to explore the opportunities.
Yeah, hopefully, all the interview stuff going on right now and the hiring process going through that. I'm guessing it's probably going to take like another 3 months, but you never know what they're thinking, right? They could just be like, man, this guy is not the guy, but they gotta follow the steps, go through the basic stuff. The whole time they're just judging me, and I'm just sitting here like, I'm killing it, like I am the guy. And there's like
till like a week before you're supposed to know, and they're like, yeah, so you're not the fucking guy.
It's like that meme of that boomer in the fucking grocery store. I'm that guy, pal. I'm that guy. They sit me down. You are, in fact, not the guy.
You are not that guy, pal. Trust me.
What was the name of that show back in the day? You might have been too young to remember it. Weakest Link. I think it was literally called Weakest Link, but it was this older lady that hosted the show. And there would be like a few contestants on the show. And I think it was like a trivia based thing. But at the end, they'd be like, you are the weakest link. Goodbye. And they'd fucking buzz them out.
Really? Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that. I don't even think I've ever heard of that, to be honest.
There's a couple of videos like floating around on the internet of like witty banter between her and the contestants and stuff that you see all the time. But yeah, I can see that sitting there. Final interview, waiting to find out what the consensus is with the bosses, and I'm just like, I am the guy. I killed the process. I passed all their tests. Like, I'm good to go. And then they're just like, you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Just drop you off the face of the earth. Love that. All right. So within the past 2 weeks, obviously every day there's a bunch of stuff going on in the world. There's a lot of shocking things that always conspire without the world. And there was one really like weird thing I saw like last night too, on Instagram actually. And it was a picture of this cloud that looked like there was a UFO inside of it. Like it looked like a UFO cloud. And it was like red. I'm trying to remember where it was from, but how do you think the world would react to that? Like, do you think scientists know about a different form of species like aliens? Do you think the world knows and they're just not saying something?
So it was just a cloud that was spotted that had like a red hue to it, or the cloud?
Yeah, so
weird.
So I'll send you a picture of it right now. But it says UFO-shaped cloud in Turkey shocks the internet. And it's literally like the picture is pretty, like that shit looks disturbing.
I don't know, 50-50, because like, JRE, the Joe Rogan podcast, right? Oh my God, what is that thing?
Right? Does that not look like a little disturbing to you?
It also looks like there's like a sunset going on in the background. You know what I mean? So
that might be making the reddish color on it.
Yeah, like there's some nature creates some pretty wild colors on its own when you think of animals like peacocks or like chameleons with the colors that they can turn into, or when you think of the atmosphere and you think of like the colors of the sunsets or the aurora borealis, the northern lights.
True.
You know, when you get up north towards, Alaska or Saskatchewan and stuff in Canada, like, so I don't feel like it's out of the question that like that kind of color could naturally occur and just be kind of casted on the cloud. That is kind of like a weird shape though, but
right?
it's
Like
also
that,
like it doesn't have like hard lines to it, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of got like blurry faded out lines around the edges like a cloud would have, and not like defined sharp edges like an actual like flying object.
yeah, but you never know. Like with a different species, they could be way more technology advanced than us. They could make that shit look like a cloud and be like, yeah, we're a fucking cloud right now. Ain't nobody can fucking tell who we are. I'm a fucking cloud.
You ever see the National Geographic like behind the scenes filming, and it'll be like some dude dressed up as like a fake baby seal laying on the ground, and all the other seals are like, "What up, brother?" And they're like, running up to him and playing with them and stuff, or like they'll be pretending to be like a penguin or something, just a giant penguin, and they're like, "Oh
Wait,
my
really?
god, you're going to the NBA, bro? You like 8 feet tall."
Wait, they do that? They dress up as like a fake animal with them?
Yeah, they like blend into the habitat to like get closer shots and video recordings and stuff. But
Really?
what if that's just what if that's the aliens version of doing that to us? They're like, they have no idea we're a cloud right now. Idiots.
Fucking got your ass.
They're just chilling up there like, yep, don't look at the cloud. Don't be suspicious.
Don't mind me. We're just up here watching you guys.
We're just like dumb penguins to them. They're just blended in like these idiots.
Oh my.
But there was an episode of JRE, the Joe Rogan Experience, and he was interviewing, I believe they were an ex-Navy pilot. And he even straight up said, like, the Midwest, the more rural regions of the United States, like if they were flying the jets and stuff and they could like see a campfire when it was dark at night and they were like flying under night vision with their goggles on and all the lights off, they would get the plane up to a high speed, like hundreds of miles per hour, and they would just cut the engines so they wouldn't be making any noise and just kind of glide over to that campfire that they saw. And when they felt like they were above it, they would just nose straight up and then just blast the engines to take off, like to just appear and then take off in a straight line up in the sky and then cut everything off again and glide away just to fuck with people.
I can't imagine that happening to like, I'm just sitting out there, having a campfire by myself. And out of nowhere, just engines start fucking hitting me. The thrust in the back knocks me over and random thing just flies away. I can't imagine, like, I'd shit my pants.
Just a dude from the Blue Angels practicing for the next routine. He's just like, watch this.
That's funny.
Just blasts you off with the afterburners, whatever log you're sitting on, just straight up in a straight line. And the guy said too, like every time we would do it to fuck with people, like there'd be instant UFO reportings the next day come flying in.
Really? So maybe it's just them fucking with us again.
I mean, I'm sure there's got to be something out there with how big the universe is. I don't know if there's like things as smart as us or smarter than us, but like if there was like different subspecies of humans, like Neanderthals and stuff at one time on the planet with us, like why can't they just also be somewhere else, like millions of years of travel away, and it's just this giant void filter. I think there's a term for it, something filter, where like it exists out there, but like no one's technologically advanced enough to contact each other just because of the dramatic span between everything.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that like within the last 2 weeks since we did our first podcast, they actually found another planet that's like exactly like Earth. It's 95% rocks, but it's 100 light years away. So it's pretty decent ways away.
Yeah, I feel
But
like that's like a perfect example. Like it's Earth 2.0. It's basically like if you cloned it from what it sounds like,
yeah,
right? But it's so far away, like we have no idea. Like, what do we? There's no way to send like radio waves. If anything's even living there, like it could be a cat.
but
Like
but
the
that's
cat's
the
not
other
gonna
thing.
respond.
But that's the other thing too. They just like I think it was NASA. NASA got a reporting of radio waves that was like 9 billion light years away.
What do they define
It was
as
like,
radio waves though? Because like radio waves are also like naturally occurring. Like there's things that emit different frequencies. So like, are they
it didn't
talking
really.
radio waves from like 101 FM, The Rock? Like what?
It didn't really go into like too much depth because obviously like 9 billion light years away, they're not gonna fucking know. Like they're not gonna know what it came from. Like they're not really gonna be able to like just narrow it down just because we got fucking radio waves.
Yeah,
It's more of like a hey, we got this. So it's kind of cool if you wanted to know.
giant gas planets in our solar system, like Saturn and Venus and stuff, that like constantly have like storms going on in their atmosphere and stuff, like lightning and whatnot. Like lightning is a natural producer of radio waves. So like what? You know what I mean? Like they say radio waves. I'm sure they didn't go into detail, but like what do they mean? Like they're like, oh my God, like they got 98.5 Kiss FM, Fergalicious going on over here. Or a thunder and lightning storm.
Yeah, but at the other point too, like the government has to be hiding some stuff, They can't have so many different things break out at once. They gotta keep the people of the earth kind of settled down a little bit. Like if randomly one day, like during COVID, they were like, oh, hey, by the way, we have these fucking pictures of these UFOs. And like 2 weeks later, everyone just forgot about them. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where like the government admits to something when they feel like they're ready to admit to it. And they're going to do it like in a slow, steady fashion to not create like any shock and panic. And like, what is, UFO, unidentified flying object? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I could take a tennis ball and launch it over my neighbor's house. And if he doesn't know what it is, like, that shit's a UFO.
Yeah, exactly.
Or giant clouds in the skies.
Over Turkey. Yeah, it's got to be a fucking UFO. So let's get into this one. Because this obviously nuclear war, with technology advancing so much, all these different countries have made astonishing accomplishments of their military and, weapons, bombs, drones, fighter jets, and all this stuff. And I read a article recently that talked about the Russian-Ukraine situation, and Putin says if they lose, that they will start a nuclear war. So what are your thoughts on nuclear war? And do you really think Putin will go to that extreme extent? Because nuclear war could take out the whole Earth. It could mess everybody up.
I think it's like a bunch of saber rattling from Putin, right? He's got to keep the masses hyped up in authoritative dictatorship like that. That the oligarchs are keeping him propped up in the public eye. So, and the big thing with Russia and their nukes, from my understanding, is they have a lot of tactical nukes. So tactical nukes are a much like smaller yield than what people really think of when they're thinking of like ICBMs and stuff, right? So like obviously today's modern nukes are a lot stronger than what was dropped on Japan. But these tactical nukes, like, you could have a squad of infantrymen, in an area like the size of a football field, and that tactical nuke is only going to take out the field. It's not going to take out the entire area.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of like the other thing I was thinking. I was like, he could start a nuclear war, but at the end of the day, if they're only tactical, like I don't really feel like it's what are you just gonna blow up Ukraine? You kind of already blew up Ukraine.
Yeah, anything short of any forces pushing into Russia, I feel like he won't use any kind of nuclear option, because once he uses a nuke, I feel like that kind of forces everyone's hand, whether it's against Ukraine or anyone. I feel like you're going to see some kind of scenario where, NATO in full force is going in and removing him. If it stays a localized, regional conflict in Ukraine and Ukraine pushes them back and defends the border, then I don't think anything's going to happen. But, if he uses a nuke, people are going to go in. If people go in, he's going to use a nuke. So it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy if he uses the nuke before any incursion on Russian border occurs.
Oh, for sure. And then didn't the whole like conflict start just because Putin wanted Ukraine back? Because wasn't Ukraine part of Russia like a while ago?
So I don't think Ukraine was ever really a part of the Russian Federation. But Ukraine was a part of the USSR. So I'm pretty sure Ukraine was actually the second largest, like military wise, economy wise, population wise, industrialized, just like kind of in all metrics when it came to the different satellite states within the USSR behind the Russian Federation. So, and then Russia obviously, is a very big country, but a lot of their lands aren't very, high yield producing territories when it comes to agriculture. But Ukraine is like 40% of the world's export in wheat and stuff. And so I'm pretty sure he just sees the region as something that would benefit Russia greatly, more so than like it was a part of Russia. I think he just like saw the benefits of it when it was under USSR control and really wants that back. Although there is like a large native Russia population in Ukraine, and a lot of people in Ukraine do speak Russian. But I think at this point, like the optics of the war are so bad that the like Ukrainian civilians are pretty jaded against Putin in general. I don't think they're going to want to join anytime soon on their own accord.
Oh, hell no. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure like their uniforms are almost the same. They basically speak the same language. Because I saw a video the one time. There was a Russian dude running up on two Ukraine guys like in a little bunker. And the Russian dude ran up to him, held him at gunpoint. They put their guns down. And then the Ukrainians thought the Russian was like with them. Like the Ukrainians thought the Russian was a Ukrainian.
They're like, "What up, man? How's it going?" Oh shit!
And so we like took his guns and like took the guns, and as he was taking the guns, the dude like pointed the gun at the Russian. The Russian just popped them both out. Like I was like shocked. I was like, "What the fuck just happened?"
Shot him.
Like how do you not? Yeah, I was like, how do you not realize like me thinking about the Ukrainians? Like, how do you not realize there's a Russian holding you at gunpoint?
Yeah, no.
So like obviously they have to be like pretty similar to think that oh, that dude's on my team. What's up?
Yeah, well, I feel like especially if your uniforms are like exactly the same, like it'd be pretty hard to tell if we went to war if Canada and our uniforms were the same. You know what I mean? Unless they start running up on some southern dude from like Florida or Texas, yelling, "Hey, what you know about that Timmy O's? Eh?" They're gonna be like, "Oh my god, it's an American."
Yeah, right. Exactly.
The real threat. Forget about Russia. They've proven themselves to be incompetent when it comes to, waging war. Well,
Agreed.
I don't know if incompetent, but stuck in their old ways of we'll just keep throwing bodies at the enemy until the enemy runs out of bullets. China. I feel like China. They gonna get frisky? They gonna try something? You know, we're approaching that deadline of reunification that they want with Taiwan. And they said by any means necessary, peaceful or by war. Preferably peace, they say. But, you know, they're an authoritative dictatorship as well, basically, at this point. So, China, Taiwan, thoughts?
Oh, man. China.
Why do you call it the Chinese virus? Because it came from China.
So actually, I know a decent amount about this because we had a meeting one day about it, and so basically it was a while ago, so I don't remember every little detail. But China wants Taiwan because Taiwan will help with the exporting of goods, you know, all those different open routes that the ships can go through. But it's hard because I saw they have so many different, like China has so many different SAM's missiles, like basically just they could take out Taiwan very quickly, actually. And it's tough for Taiwan because, you know, they're just that little island. What are they going to do? They can't do much. But
for the people listening that don't know, what is a SAM missile?
So a SAM missile is a surface-to-air missile. So it goes, you know, from obviously a ground to the air. And I don't really think I can touch on that next part. But basically, it can just track down the airplanes, land from hundreds of miles away, depending on a few different things. If you have something near that can, so say they're trying to send it from the west side of China to the east side of China, right? They could send it from the very west side, but you have to have something like a receiver that would basically pick up the coordinates of the missile to kind of help guide it along the way. So you have to have a few different stations.
Almost kind of like with radios. Radios only have a certain distance, but you can set up like repeaters and nodes and stuff that keep relaying that signal along to boost the range of it overall.
Yes, and their technology with that is very advanced, and it's kind of scary because they could send those missiles to us if they really wanted to. They could, and like I said, you could do it through repeaters on the ground. You could do it through other planes in the air that will help guide the missiles. But China's military has gotten so big and their technology has advanced so much that, you know, if it's not going to be a peaceful way to take over Taiwan, it'll be over within a day.
I think that China is falling into the same, you know, folly that Russia has, where they have numbers, right? They got the bodies, but there's high levels of corruption in the military and their defense agencies and all these different, you know, industrial military complexes that they have in place. And they have lack of training of their troops and whatnot, and they're overcompensating with mass buildup of easy to use equipment like SAMs or GTAMs. And they're like, well, when it comes to, multi-capable warfare, integrated warfare between the different branches and coordination and stuff, whether it be a coordinated assault with an infantry team, receiving air coverage from their air force. They're like, we're just going to go in and drop missiles on anything that moves and then advance on the rubble. Or do you think this is just a backup plan and they're not, they're completely different and not inept like the Russians?
I don't really think it'll be like the Russia-Ukraine situation. I personally, I feel like Vladimir Putin is just a fucking monster. I think he just will do anything he wants. He doesn't care about any other people in the world. He's just like, I'm the fucking dictator. I'm going to do what the fuck I want, and nobody's going to stop me. But China, on the other hand, I feel like they only want Taiwan for the import and export of all their different cargo ships. It'll help the goods get in, because that's on the east side of China. It's gonna wait. It's on the east side, right?
That is east. When in doubt, never eat soggy waffles.
No. I was just trying to picture China in my head for a second. But that helps get to the back end, like instead of them always exporting through the south. I feel like opening up that side of it will really help them in getting exports out and in. So I don't really think it's going to be like we're going to take Taiwan and now we're going to take all these other fucking countries because we just want to own everything. I don't think it's going to be like that, like Russia is. Because I feel like once Russia takes Ukraine, they're just going to be like, yeah, we're just going to keep on fucking going.
Just continue to rebuild the glory of the USSR, one post-Soviet era satellite state at a time.
Yeah, but no, I don't.
Do you think there's a world where, are you familiar with the Belt and Road Initiative by China in places in like Southeast Asia and Africa and stuff? Do you think there's a world where they satiate their thirst for expansion through those means? Or do you think Taiwan is kind of like a black eye on them history-wise as well, since, when the Communist Party came to power in China, the original government in China fled to Taiwan. So, it's kind of like a to China policy going on there. You know what I mean? It'd be like if there was a communist revolution in America and the U.S. government fled to Alaska or something. You know what I mean?
Alaska? That's the question.
Belt and Road Initiative. Do you think this is their way of kind of getting a foothold around the world and opening up different trade routes and economic opportunities to them? Like, are you familiar with that initiative at all? Or do you think, regardless of how successful that is, they're always going to want to take Taiwan back?
I just think having Taiwan will open up so many more different opportunities for China. I don't really think it's like hey, we just want your land. It's like, no, we want your land for all this fucking shit that can help out our country.
After Biden put in basically that ultimatum, right, of everyone working in the chip industry overseas in China, basically like, you will either leave China or your U.S. citizenry will be revoked. And I haven't read about a single person that decided to stay. Like, they all left. They're like, no, I'd rather not give up my U.S. citizenship. And that really crippled their manufacturing sector pretty hard because, I think we talked about it last week. They're kind of on the low end. They make a lot of chips, but it's on the lower end of the manufacturing scale when it comes to the quality of those chips and what they're used for. And a lot of even that was able to happen from help from, U.S. nationals working over there. Biden pulled the plug on that. Taiwan is a big producer of semiconductors and microchips. And
Yeah, very big.
so do you
Very
think
big.
that will force their hand at all? Like, well, if we can make this happen, this is an easy way back into the game.
To be honest, I feel like just because Taiwan controls most of the computer chips and like basically all of our electronics, they're big producers to us of electronics. I feel like knowing Joe Biden, I feel like we actually might step into that. I think we're going to be there if it's not going to be a peaceful way. I think we're going to be there to defend Taiwan. I know it sounds a little crazy because, like, I know a lot of people haven't heard about it, but I think we need to keep Taiwan. I don't think letting China take it over is going to be very beneficial to us and the world.
Yeah, no, it's kind of placating to the regime if you let them do that, and then they're going to think, well, what else can we get away? Like World War II, crazy line to draw, right? But World War II, Hitler said he would not invade Czechoslovakia if, they just gave a little bit of land here, gave a little bit of land there. And I think we all know how that worked out for the world trying to appease him. So,
yeah.
But China,
right.
Taiwan, a lot of those chips that they make actually come back to the U.S. for the military industrial complex and a lot of the equipment that they use here. The big thing with Taiwan, though, is the materials that Taiwan uses comes from places like the Netherlands and Japan and Indonesia. But as far as like the software, the machining, and the actual like knowledge and know-how, that's still all provided by the U.S. to Taiwan. But it's, they have the good relationship with the U.S. and the cheap labor to put it all together, because the actual manufacturing of the chips is very expensive, but they're able to save costs by having go to Taiwan. Japan still is, but not to the extent it used to be, was real big in the chip game as well. But they were doing everything in-house when it came to, the manufacturing know-how, the software, the design plans, all that stuff. But that actually got crushed like back in the 80s by Reagan, because the U.S. was getting like 90% of all of its chips from Japan, and they didn't like being, militarily wise, beholden to another country. We still kind of are with Taiwan, but it's like the devil we chose. So without us, they couldn't do it. We're just basically using, their cheap labor to get it done at a more cost efficient way, but we're still kind of really holding all the pieces to the puzzle. So if China takes Taiwan and we got the blueprints, we got the know-how, we got the software, all these things, Japan, the Netherlands, Indonesia got the supplies. Does China keep going? They're like, well, we ain't got the, the plasma lasers. We got to go after the Netherlands. That'd be kind of a reach, but you know what I mean. Does the conquests continue to get everything they need to do everything in house?
If China takes over Taiwan, we will be in such a shit position, because I know we don't really like. I know China provides a lot to us, and we provide a lot to them. But at the same time, them taking over Taiwan, that's another like that's something China can hold over us, because their country is so big that they don't need us. But back to our everyday things, a lot of the things we have in our house made in China. a lot of the things. And I feel like if China gets that little extra hand with all those things that Taiwan has supported us with, I feel like that's just more stuff that China can just hold over our head. And then, like you said, when they get this, they're going to be like, oh, well, now we can take plasma lasers from the Netherlands. And maybe they will just keep on thinking that, it's always the next person that's like, that wants to do a little more, a little more, a little more, and a little more. But then over time, it's like such a big detriment to the world because they want everything. It's all about power. And
They're long-term thinking. They got the
I
100-year plan, the 300-year plan, the 500-year plan. They're playing the long game.
Yeah.
The U.S. operates on 4 and 2-year election cycles, but when you got one dude in power for life, you can really plan that thing out long-term, play the long con.
Yeah, I mean, but that also has its pros and cons, Like, obviously, with the United States, 4 years, 8 years max a president can be in for. That kind of helps us out because it gives us that even balance to where somebody can't have too much of the power. But like a place like China, however old they can get their next dictator as, he's in it.
Sir, he's not
in
a
it forever.
dictator. He's just the president for life. Okay, it's two completely different things. Okay, I know what the optics look like, but I promise you, he's a great guy. All right, just don't call him Winnie the Pooh. It's a real sticking point with him. Yeah, I guess a while back he was getting all upset.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, Xi Jinping looks like Winnie the Pooh. Look at this motherfucker. And he's like, I'll kill anyone that calls me Winnie the Pooh. Imagine being the sole leader of the largest population-wise country on the planet, and, arguably rising superpower, in the coming decades to be on par with the United States. And you are so conceited and self-conscious that you're worried about some dude calling you Winnie the Pooh on Facebook.
I mean, but that also kind of goes back to Joe Biden, Everyone shits on him all the time. Like Sleepy Joe.
Yeah, I don't think Sleepy Joe's cognizant enough to be aware of what people say about him on Facebook.
I mean, yeah, but yes, that is funny that he's sensitive to stuff like that. But I mean, he is, in my eyes, a dictator, and he will do what the hell he wants. He doesn't really care about anybody else.
Just you would think. I really thought it was going to happen, but it doesn't look like it's. We're in 2023 now, and it doesn't look like it's really caught on. But I thought for sure, with all the supply chain issues with COVID and China's no COVID policy, like locking down entire cities, and not like, well, wear a mask outside, don't go to the movie theaters, don't go to restaurants and stuff. With you know how I am. Even that I don't agree with. I don't agree with people telling me I can't go to a restaurant or movie theater or something if I choose to weigh the pros and cons and risk of that. But to go as far as China and shut down entire cities and, lock people up if they violate that, and, killing people that test positive for COVID, all for the sake of the no COVID policy and disrupting so much in the supply chains and stuff. I really thought for sure that'd be a wake-up call for the rest of the world to realize these single points of failures are so detrimental, and it really beholds you to China and this authoritative regime that's doing these awful things on a daily basis. But they're like, well, you know what? But those N95 masks, man, are they cheap when they get made in those sweatshops? I tell you what.
Exactly. But hold on, I got another point. So back to China shutting down, locking down cities in COVID. I don't know this, But how much did it affect their like the money in the country? How much did it affect
Like their GDP?
you know, yeah, with locking down, holding everybody down, money's not being made, money's not being spent. I mean, it could be spent, but money's not really being made. Like, they're not making as much, obviously, with a full city
I
running.
think the issue of a place like China is it's hard to get a good realistic estimate because all those things are reported. You know what I mean? So there's how much weight do you put in what they're telling you? Because obviously the CCP wants to look good. So even during COVID, when, across the board, GDPs have gone stagnant for all countries, if not negative. China can come out and be like, yeah, GDP, we're killing it. Went up 15%. Like what? One, are you experiencing hyperinflation, sir? What's going on there? Double digits GDP. And two, how? Everything shut down. I can't buy anything I normally buy from your country, but your GDP went up by double digits. So I guess it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I don't think they reported a single year, 2020, 21, 22, with, zero or negative growth. They were posting like 3 to 6% every year. That's what they were reporting anyways. So I think it goes back to how reliable is the information. How much weight do you put behind it?
Yeah. So that kind of gets on my next thing, because I was like, how much should it like financially affect the country? Because like going back to the US, man, we just recently hit the $31.4 billion like we hit the national debt
ceiling.
What's it called? Yeah, we hit the ceiling for it. So I feel like COVID had a lot to do with that for us. Everybody's at home. They can't fucking pay their bills. Nobody's going to fucking work. So that kind of leads to my next question. What do you think about the U.S. hitting the national debt ceiling? How will that affect stocks? How will that affect people's 401ks? How will that affect the people?
I think the beat of the war drums will go on. The ceiling will just be raised if it hasn't already. Like I said earlier, you're a little bit younger, so you might not remember the times it's happened before in the past. But I know since moving out in 2013, this is like the third or fourth time this has come up, and every time the solution has been, well, we'll just bump the limit up. You know what I mean? It's kind of like getting pulled over for speeding, and then you and the cop talk it out, and the cop's just like, you know what? We'll just bump the speed limit up, and then you weren't even speeding to begin with, so we got no problem here. You know what I mean? I don't think the government has been too concerned with spending ever since being taken off the gold standard back in the day, and then realistically, financially, I'm obviously a pretty conservative person. I don't really believe the government used the funds too wisely in the COVID response, especially when it came to things like the stimulus check. So I don't know. I feel like the response overall could have been better for different things. Obviously, we did some things that were good, love it or hate them. Operation Warp Speed under the Dawn was pretty solid, but people like me and you that have pretty steady income from our jobs, did we really need all those COVID paychecks? You know what I mean? Well, maybe you, because when it was first going on, you were fucking in school still, so that was definitely.
No, I was out of high school.
You were beginning the journey.
Yeah, I was doing construction, and I remember when I was doing construction, I was 18, 19, and I was pulling like $1,500 every week for my job. So I was making more than like a decent human.
You only make
I was working long hours.
Hot here from Mr. Rae. You are not a decent human. That's going to flash down the line somewhere. Someone's going to see this, and it's going to get all over Twitter. Like, thought he blew up, acting like he don't know no one. He said if you make under 1,500, you're not a decent person.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean it like I was working 55 hours a week though. I was busting my ass out of high school trying to make a lot of money while I was young. And um and like I didn't need the stimulus check. Like my point is that a kid straight out of high school, not going to college, I didn't need the stimulus check. It was kind of
Yep.
I feel like the stimulus check was more towards the
Or
families,
elderly
like
people and stuff.
moms and dads that have kids or elderly people that just can't do it. So I feel like it helped in a way, but I feel like it also didn't help in a way. I feel like it was a waste for people like me. I feel like it was a waste because I didn't stop working. I had to
It could
work.
have definitely been more a targeted response if you were in an industry that was heavily affected by the measures put in place to slow the spread of COVID, like closing of the restaurants and movie theaters and stuff. Like a loan originator who's sitting at home behind his computer reviewing documents for a real estate deal. He's not affected by those COVID measures, but people that were heavily in the service industry were. So I feel like it's a catch-22. The government never does out of the good of its heart, right? It's always beholden to its constituents. So if it gives person A money because they're a waiter and they have no job, person B is going to feel some kind of way. So then you end up just giving them both money, even though half of it ended up being worthless. And, you could have used that in different programs or just spent more on person A who really needs it in general. So it just ends up being a half measure.
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't really need it. But on the other hand, was it nice to see it go in my bank account? Very.
Yeah.
Very nice. It was just extra money that I just got to put away.
That's another argument I always hear. That like, well, they were trying to stimulate spending to keep the economy afloat during the downturn. But like you just said right now, you didn't need that money. So you got a windfall of, however much, depending on the different checks that came out, right? And where did it go? It went right to your savings and sat there. Did you go buy a bottle of Grey Goose or something and slap some bills on the counter at the bar? No. Did you go get bottle service at a private room at the back of the club? No. I just went and sit in your savings account. It didn't spur any additional money in the economy.
Yeah. And I mean, what they paid me was like me working a week. So I mean, it wasn't really like. It was just like I just worked an extra week. Cool, great.
It wasn't like life changing.
But obviously, but obviously with me, getting older, buying a house, there's things I got to buy for my house. So I mean, in the end, it helped. But that was years after. But it's not like it really affected me though. Like it's not like whether it was sitting in my bank account or not, I didn't need it.
Yeah. Makes sense. The Operation Warp Speed under the Donald. Do you find it's kind of weird that his administration kind of really pushed hard for these RMA vaccines? And some of the things I read, they expected like the speed up in progress of the vaccine rollout and the vaccination getting done early and everything could have saved up to like 150,000 lives. And I think the U.S. death toll right now is like 1.1 million have died from COVID. So that's like, that could have been extra like 15%, people dying.
Yeah.
Do you think it's kind of weird that was an accomplishment of his administration? Yeah, I feel like we've seen this political divide on the left and right, where the left is like, you will get vaccinated or you're the part of the problem. And then on the right, they're like, they're using pigeons to spy on me. and COVID makes my baby gay if I give him a vaccine, or the COVID vaccine makes my baby gay. COVID vaccine makes my baby gay. I feel like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you got a guy, you know, he's on the right, you got a good idea of what he thinks about the COVID vaccine. And you've got a guy on the left, you got a pretty good idea. And it's so weird to me because this was a big push and a thing that was done, Operation Warp Speed, under Donald Trump, arguably, you know, the most polarizing right-leaning president we've had in modern times.
Yeah. I personally, I feel like, you know, Operation Warp Speed has pros and cons. Everything's got pros and cons. It helped cut down the production. I'm pretty sure it was like from 75 days to like 7 days.
With like making like each dose of it.
Yeah, with like mass producing the dose to get it out to people. But then, you know, it was kind of like, holy shit, COVID's a thing. This might kill you. Like, COVID can kill you. It could ruin your families. It could ruin your lives. But, you know, we've only been studying this for a few months now, and we think we have this vaccine for it. So we're just going to give it out to you, and we're just going to mass produce it. The FDA approved it. But at the end of the day, like, I still know to now that, yeah, I got the fucking vaccine because I had to have it. But I feel like it didn't do much. I feel like it was all kind of just like I feel like they just took it way too quick, and it just didn't work out at the end.
I feel like a big problem was, we had it started becoming polarized, when the mandates came, when people were told you have to get it to return to work or go in public or take a mask off or whatever. And the media over the years has not so much become an independent reporting agency, regardless of what that media outlet is and what you follow, right? From Fox News on the right to CNN on the left, they both have their biases to their own agendas. And when the media started pushing things heavily, that created the big divide, because people, you know, Trump was always calling the media dishonest and biased and all these things, which they always were, but he took it to a whole new level of using them as a straw man argument. And that kind of sowed the seeds in the general public, because all these mandates came out and the media made it seem like this was the golden pill. They exaggerated the claims, rather they realized it at the time or not what they were doing. They made it sound like you get the vaccine, you cannot transmit COVID, you will not get COVID, like you are good to go. And we know now that that's a fallacy. Like, you can still get COVID. You will fare much better than you would have if you weren't vaccinated with your symptoms and stuff. But you can still get COVID. You can still transmit COVID. Like, it's not a golden pill that's going to protect you from all that stuff. But before we get your response real quick.
Yeah, no.
I need to take 5. I need to use the restroom. I need to get some water. I'm dying over here.
All right, let's take a break.
All right. Thank you for humoring me there with the break, the throat, the bathroom. You know, I got a condition and all.
Throat.
It was a much needed.
What were you doing with the throat?
The water. I was drinking water. Calm down, you
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so the mandates, right? Trump, he polarized. I can't say polarizing for some reason. The media in the eyes of the people, right? And then the hot and heavy, you know, ideas that were being pushed of take the shot, you won't get COVID. You can't get COVID. You can't transmit it. And then, kind of coercing people like, hey, if you ever want to take that mask off again, you'll get the shot. You ever want to go back to work again, you'll take the shot. You want things to be like they were before COVID. You want to be a functioning member of society, you'll take the shot.
Yeah, so in my eyes, I feel like the government put something out so quick for the COVID vaccine that they were kind of forcing it upon people to take it, to be like, hey, we just spent all this money. We just did this in the shortest amount of time possible. We did this for you, so you're gonna listen to what we're doing, and you're gonna listen to what we're saying if you want to go back to a normal life. And then I feel like over time, people started getting the shot. People started finding out that it might affect their kids, like if they're pregnant. And over time, people were realizing that it was that the vaccine kind of backfired. That it's only so much percent effective. It's not 100%. I bet you it's not even 80% effective. But then people over time kind of realized that. And I feel like slowly going on, people were like, yeah, you know what? Fuck the vaccine. Like, this shit ain't doing jack all. So I feel like the government as a whole was just trying to portray themselves to the rest of the world as like, yeah, we friggin' did this. We put this vaccine together ASAP. We're saving lives. We're doing this. We're doing that. But yeah, it might have saved lives. But at the end of the day, they also had to control us in a way to basically make lives go back to normal, make people go back to work, make us be able to go back to the movies, make us be able to go shopping at the mall again. And I feel like that little bit of control they had over us just plain old backfired on them, with people realizing that it's not what they put it out to be.
Now, do you think the vaccine itself backfired because the efficacy wasn't there that people thought it had? Or do you think it backfired? Basically, no different than in the markets. It was basically kind of through the media, faulty advertising. So, like, people maybe felt some kind of way after it became quite obvious it wasn't going to protect you from COVID 100% and that you could still transmit COVID. And then as the months went on, the waning efficacy of the vaccine itself went from, get this shot or get these 2 shots, depending on, what manufacturer of the vaccine you got, to your booster, to your second booster, to your third booster, or whatever booster people are taking these days. You know what I mean? Do you think in the push to get something that ultimately did help and was going to help the COVID response, they were overzealous in their selling how good of a product it is, and then people felt lied to or misled, and then that ended up making them feel some kind of way at the end of the day?
Oh, for sure. The media can control a lot of that too. So I feel like the government as a whole kind of portrayed it to be, this is the shit. This will save your life. And then I feel like over time, people just started to realize that, fuck, this thing is shitty. And I know my parents, when I told them I had to get it, they were like, hey, you gotta take all these friggin' different supplements. You gotta do this every day. You gotta do this, and this every day, every week, every month, whatever it was. that they were trying to give me. They're like, you got to do all this shit to get that shit out of your body.
You got to go on a cleanse. You got to go on a detox. Look, you're going to be pissing and shitting every day till you get this stuff out of your system.
Yeah, I was like, whoa. I was like, listen, I have to get that. I don't have a say. I'm not going to take all these random things you're telling me to take. Like, what is the media doing to you?
I don't know if you paid attention to our parents at all during the evolution of COVID, but I feel like they are a perfect example, whether they realize it or not, of the political polarization of COVID. Because I remember when it first started,
Why do you say that?
When it first started out, they were freaking out. They were in the camp of everyone is going to die of COVID. This is going to be the end of the world as we know it. They were sending masks to the wife nonstop in the mail that were like handmade that they bought. They were asking questions if they knew I went out to the movies or something, or they knew I was in a class for work and they were asking about, you know, the measures being taken to make sure people don't get COVID. They were talking about stocking up on things like it was the end of the world and there was going to be a run on the banks and the restaurants and everything. To, you know, look at them now. If you get the shot, the government's got antibodies in there and it's going to turn you gay. Obviously, that's an exaggeration. They don't actually think that. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, they are staunchly anti-vaccination when it comes to this mRNA COVID vaccine. So, and I feel like that has to do with the media response on the left or the right. Sure. And depending on what type of media you're consuming, it's pivoting their ideas. And then the fact that both sides weren't truthful, you know, it just gave the other side ammunition. The public in this day and age is so consumed by whatever they believe, and they just exist in these echo chambers that further, you know, reinforce what they already want to think and want to know. So when you get something big like this and the quote unquote other side is giving you half truths and arguing in bad faith, then it's just going to make these people dig in even more. And then you end up a response like, well, with what I just said, they went from, you know, this is the end of the world. This is zombie apocalypse, you know, get the crossbows ready. It's going to be, you know, the Walking Dead style out here, to, you know, it's a government conspiracy. The government wants to turn my kid gay with a vaccine. Again, not quite that far, but you know what I'm talking about.
They were trying to lessen the population. We're getting too big. We're getting too strong.
Some Alex Jones stuff going on out here.
But I do remember at the very beginning, I was at work, and I want to say it was like near lunchtime. I don't remember who called me. Somebody was like, "Hey, yo, you should go like stock up on food. You should go stock up on supplies and all this shit." And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, that was before like COVID really blew up. Like, I already knew like it was a thing, and they were like, "Yeah, it started in China. It's like over there." And like in my head, I was like, "Oh, it's in China. It's not gonna fucking come over here. What? Like, what are you talking about?" And he was like, "No, seriously, like, you gotta like go tell your parents, go tell your mom, go stock up on food. Like, stores are about to be sold out, all this shit." And I was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. I was like, listen, the world's not gonna end. I was like, a little virus that's happening is not gonna kill the whole world. No way. And the media definitely did that at first. They were like, this is killing hundreds of millions of people. This is going to be the world's going to end, is what everyone was putting it as. And then over time, you know, it did happen. The vaccine, everyone was like, "Oh my God, this is going to save us. This is going to save us all." And then, yeah, and then hence our parents. And then now they're so anti-vaccine. It's like the media put so much different things into people's heads to kind of control the situation. And I mean, I guess that's what just the media does. But I guess it all takes like each individual person to actually sit there and read facts, read articles, to realize that this is the right, this is what's happening, and this is the wrong. These are rumors. Don't fucking listen to them. But then you got like CNN, all these different news industries that do put out false information sometimes. And it always keeps the world, it always keeps the US in that like weird spot in the middle to where we're like, wait, that motherfucker said it'll kill you. But these guys, they said we're going to live forever.
Yeah, it doesn't help too that our own members of the government are so wishy-washy on everything, because you got people like, you know, when Trump was talking about the China virus and all these things, and he was getting pushback saying, you know, he was hoping to breed, you know, Asian hate in America with his statements. And, you know, I feel like this vaccine has grown into this almost cultural identity of the left. But when it was first going on, I feel like people forget that, you know, Nancy Pelosi is like stating we shouldn't shut anything down. We're here, you know, in Chinatown in New York and got no masks on, and they're participating in like these parades and stuff. And she's going to her hairstylist and stuff. And it's like the same thing. They did like a complete 180. Now, I don't know if that's like pandering to your base and, you know, trying to cling to that power after 30, 40, 50 years in government. You're just so disconnected from reality, and you're just a robot and not even a person at that point. And you're just doing whatever you need to do to get to that next election cycle, or what's going on. But to go from, you know, the president is breeding Asian hate, he keeps calling it the China virus, all these things, you know, not politically being correct and calling it, you know, COVID-19 or whatever the proper terminology that they request is, and not adhering to lockdowns and stuff, to all suddenly being like, you know, ousting people on social media themselves for something that they were doing the previous year. It's like, it's just a walking contradiction.
It's just like, man, every day I wake up and I'll get ready for my morning, you know, get my life together a little bit, eat breakfast, go to work. And I'll sit there in the morning, like as I'm waiting to go do something, and I'll look at the news and I'll be like, what new fucking thing is the media controlling today? Like, I don't know. It's just, people are so different. Like, people never want to actually go into articles. You know, people never want to actually like read the facts. You know, people always just go on Instagram and they're just scrolling, and then you see like, let's say for example, they just see like, America is now going to allow, or is going to make every family only have one child. People will read that shit and be like, holy fuck, like, America's doing this? But they won't ever like look into shit. Like,
yeah, it's the clickbaited titles. It's the sensationalism of news in order to people are being conditioned to these storylines, these little quick Snapchat things to get information, you know, taken in. And all these media conglomerates, you know, it's not just a TV or a radio anymore. They have so many different outlets that they have to compete with and stuff. So it's all about that catchy headline or that quick little 10-minute, you know, audio hitter from an interview or something that they get out there. And it's all sensationalism, and it's all hyped up, and it's all very misleading. You read an article stating like, you know, did Donald Trump pay a hooker with Bitcoin, and then you read it and it's talking about like, hey, in case you didn't know, Bitcoin's plummeted 65% over the last 12 months, but there's some very bullish indications that it doesn't even mention Trump again. It's just like, hey, did he pay a hooker? And you're like, oh, what is this article about?
Everyone scrolled through the article trying to find out if Trump paid a hooker through Bitcoin.
Yeah, and the next thing the next election cycle, people will be arguing and they'll be like, look, I heard he once paid a hooker with Bitcoin. Is this the guy you want in the Oval Office? And you're like, you didn't even read the article. It had nothing to do with that. Yeah. And then shame on the media for making those kind of headlines.
Yeah, and then everyone's sitting there like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Like, where did you find this?
It's all sensationalism. It's all, money driven. I don't know. I feel like a lot of it could be fixed, at least at the government aspect, with term limits. Like, why is the POTUS the only one with term limits? Why can somebody like Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi, sit in office, in some of these districts that are so solidified as red and blue to sit in office for 40, 50 years, But
yeah, no, I agree.
And especially for, 2 years with the House of Representatives, like these people are so caught up in staying in power. Like you get elected in a 2-year cycle, like the year leading up to the next election, you're campaigning the whole time. So how much can you get done in a year realistically? And then the second year, the other 50% of your term, you're campaigning again to sit in there for another 2 years. So I feel like more productive talks would get done if there were term limits, because they wouldn't be chasing the next election cycle every time. At least they would only chase it once. But I feel like it would help down with cronyism quite a bit.
So I'm not saying, hear me out for a second. I'm not saying I don't want to make the U.S. and the world a better place, but if you ever had the chance to run for Congress or run for president, how would you feel knowing you have that power and responsibility?
I would like it a lot personally, and I definitely have like key sticking points I would want to get done, like 100%. I'd be like, how do we get term limits and put it across the board for 2 cycles for everyone, just like the POTUS? And I would ask, how can we prevent things like slim majorities on certain topics? Like when it comes to finances and stuff, you don't need a super majority to prevent a filibuster, but nothing in a group of 100 should ever be decided by 51. So what do we need to be put in place to make sure it's always a super majority and not a 51 to 50 where the Senate president breaks the tie vote or the Speaker of the House breaks the tie vote? I don't like things like that. I feel like there needs to be almost kind of like a renaissance in America in understanding that we are a constitutional republic and the bedrock of our government is based off of that constitution. And we aren't a direct democracy, at least at the federal level. There's a lot of states and local municipalities and stuff that obviously govern themselves and participate as if they are a direct democracy. But at the very least, at the federal level, we are a constitutional republic and should be conducting ourselves accordingly. And there's a lot of unconstitutional 3-letter agencies that create policy and set rules that are enforced like laws. And when it comes to the breakdown of the government, no 3-letter agency should be interpreting, enforcing, or creating laws. That's not how things are supposed to work, but the system has gotten too big and too bogged down for it to work properly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I personally feel like if I had to No, I don't even want that power and responsibility. um, so I'm giving like kind of the argument against it right now. I feel like personally, um, just after seeing the presidents, these people in Congress, um, that they take that power to a different, like to a far extent sometimes. And I feel like me as a person, I wouldn't be able to do that just because, there is that other half of people that whatever I would say, whether it's good or bad, there's always going to be that other end that's like, hey, that's not right. Or, hey, you're a piece of shit for doing this. And it's hard to be a people pleaser. And I mean, you don't want to be you don't always want to be a people pleaser. You always have to do what's best for the country and what's best for everybody. I feel like that would sometimes would take such a big strain on you that I wouldn't be able to handle that.
I think the main problem is that the center is silent these days, and we have a very small minority that's very loud and outspoken on the right and on the left, and they have platforms that they've co-opted, like Twitter on the left or Parler on the right, to create these echo chambers, and their representatives and governments feel beholden to these groups because they are the most outspoken, and they don't hear anything from the center, and anything short of far right or far left is shut down by those groups, when there really is a silent majority. And I feel like, most people you talk to, you're like, hey, there's a border crisis, whether you think the border crisis is people flowing in or not allowing people to flow in. But I feel like most people would agree, immigration inherently is not bad, but immigration where these people are unvetted and you don't know who's coming in is bad. So is the answer to turn off the faucet and not let anyone in? Or is the answer create a better system where it's not such a long wait and lengthy, complicated process to get your citizenship? The system is not inherently racist or wrong. The system is just broken and creating a backlog. And then things like drugs and stuff, I think majority of the people don't think you should be able to, fly an airplane lit off LSD. But on the other end, I don't think there's many people that think you should serve a life sentence for having some fucking joint or blunt in your back pocket. You know what I mean? I don't think the majority of people think just owning a gun means you're going to go shoot up a school. But I don't think a majority of the population truly understands what the gun laws are or how complicated they are, and that most of these things that are done with guns that were acquired illegally or were already breaking a law that was already put in place. So is adding one more law really going to stop them when they already, disregarded other laws that are already in place? And then
hell no.
Things like voting and stuff. Like if you need an ID to collect a paycheck, if you need an ID to drive, if you need an ID to cash a check, open up a bank account, is it discrimination to ask for an ID to vote? Or is the system in place currently just broken, and that creates another barrier and hurdle because there is no form of government ID provided to everyone at the age of 18 for free? So I feel like these things that people only see it one way, but those people are the people on the left and the right, and they're the most boisterous, and they just pound their chests and say, look at me. And we've gotten to this point of no debate or exchange of words. So it just kind of drowns out the reasonable voices in the room.
Very true. Very, very true.
Speaking about reasonable voices, though, possible unpopular opinion, you need the Bills game today, baby. What's going to happen with that?
Man, I don't know. It looked like, last week we faced the Dolphins. And,
Real nail biter on that one. I can't believe we got to run for our money on a third string QB on the opposite team.
Yeah. The Bills had a lot of mistakes. I feel like the game-changing point in that, after we were up 17-0, was that fumble that Allen had that kind of gave the Dolphins like that little bit of hope. Because we were running them down. We were scoring easily. We were doing everything. But after last week, man, it gets me a little more nervous for this week. But I feel like the Bills will be able to pull out the W as long as they stick to the game plan. They got a great coaching staff, great offensive, defensive coordinator. Ken Dorsey, love him. He's fucking amazing. He's so passionate for the game. And I just hope they pull it together, make little mistakes, and figure it the hell out. Because Bills Chiefs again, we're taking the Chiefs.
They didn't look too hot last night. I only caught some highlights of the game, but they didn't really hit me with the razzle dazzle.
No, they didn't at all. And the only reason it was 27-17 was because Trevor Lawrence, they were on the 9-yard line. It was what was it? I think it was 10-17. And the Jags had the ball. They were on the Chiefs' 9-yard line. Trevor Lawrence threw it to somebody, and he was at like the 4, and he fumbled. And then the Chiefs went down and scored. So, if Jags scored there, it was tie game.
Yep.
I feel like if that little mistake in that game didn't happen, the Jags would have beat the Chiefs. I was rooting for the Jags all day. But now that it's now that the Chiefs are in, we want that revenge. We want that win. We want to go to the Super Bowl. And then the other thing that I love and hate about it is that they put the stadium in Georgia for if it was a Chiefs versus Bills.
Why in Georgia?
But in all reality, because how it was really weird with the seeding because we didn't play the Bengals. If we beat the Bengals, we would have got the number 1 seed. So we would have had home field advantage if we played the Chiefs again. But we couldn't finish the game, and Roger Goodell, he was like, well, it's kind of unfair that the Bills and the Bengals beat the Chiefs, but they got the number 1 seed for how it worked out. So we're gonna put it in Georgia.
So basically, just gonna hold the game in neutral territory instead of appease both.
Yeah, so there's just no home field advantage, which is nice, but I would have liked it a lot better if it was in Buffalo.
Yeah. Super Bowl prediction right here, right now. Bills and the Cowboys. And the Cowboys. What say you?
You say Bills Cowboys? Really? Huh. That's it. I like the prediction.
I feel like the Cowboys, are the underdogs against the 49ers. And then if they, obviously if they win, I feel like they're the underdogs against the Eagles. And you know what? I'm just really tired of hearing Cowboys fans, we dem boys, this is our year. So if they could just go to the Super Bowl and lose to the Bills, maybe that'll keep them quiet for a few years about this is their year.
So you're saying Bills, Cowboys, Super Bowl. What's the scores?
Just an absolute slaughter. Just ripping 50-yard passes. I'm talking, Diggs getting fast and loose, having the game of his career. I'm talking easily four scores to one. 4 scores to 1.
That seems a little biased.
Three of those scores coming from Diggs, and one of them's going to be an off the wall like jet sweep where he's coming out of the backfield running it and scores from like the 5-yard line.
You should never sport that. I love it. But I would love to see a Diggs versus Diggs Super Bowl.
Yeah.
With Stephon against Trevon Super Bowl, that would be awesome. I would love to see that. But my prediction, Bills, Eagles, Bills 37, Eagles 30. I think the Bills are going to squeak by today. I feel like when we play the Chiefs, it's going to be one of those another last second field goal touchdown throws, whatever it may be. Bills are going to squeak by. I feel like like you said, the Cowboys are the underdogs against the 49ers. I feel like the Cowboys will squeak by today. Barely, just barely. Depends on how Dak Prescott plays, of course, because he's not the best. But then I feel like Eagles are going to beat the Cowboys. Cowboys are going to shit the bed that game. And then I feel like the Eagles are going to come out to play against us in the Super Bowl. But I'm feeling this is the Bills' year to win it. I've said Bills Eagles Super Bowl since the last game of the regular season of this year.
If the Eagles do go all the way at work, I'm
going
gonna have to talk mad shit to Thomas because Thomas is an Eagles fan and I can't let that shit slide.
Yeah, you should. The Eagles are. I don't think the Eagles are like necessary.
I don't know how
their record makes them look good, but they faced shitty teams.
I think out of everyone that's left in the playoffs right now, they've had the easiest regular season when you look at the win rate of all the teams that they played.
Oh, for sure, they had the easiest schedule, but they lost to the worst fucking team, the Commanders. So, like, I really don't think they're that good in a sense. Like, they've got good players, don't get me wrong. But I don't think they have what it takes to win the Super Bowl this year.
I agree. And if nothing else, you know what? They did my boy Nick Foles dirty, all right? He won him a Super Bowl, and, he had a little bit of a rough patch there going into the next season, and they just threw him to the side. Like, he came in as a backup, took you to the Super Bowl, won it, and then you just threw him to the side like a toy you don't want to play anymore. Like Sid from Toy Story just chucked it in the trash. Did my man dirty.
and now he backup for the Colts and is
backup QB. He came out the smoke, won a Super Bowl just to go back to being a backup QB. The disrespect. Put some respect on my boy's name, Nick Foles. I tell you why. He got done dirty.
Literally.
What? I don't know about you.
I think
Bills,
it's a good game.
Cowboys. Sounds like you're leaning towards Bills, Eagles. I think that's it for today. We'll go watch the Bills game and see where it goes from here.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, I'll talk to you later, man.
I will talk to you next time.
Pondering Pennies with Rae and Dempsey, episode 2.